Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Cemetery Committee meeting. It is the 10th of November, just checking. We'll start with agenda item 473. Does anyone have any declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interest, please?
No, Chair.
Thank you. I know we don't have any apologies for absence because we're all here. Thank you very much for coming. Full house. 475 minutes. These were from the 8th of September. They've been approved by full council. But does anyone have any issues or any accuracy they want to raise? No, you're happy for me to sign them? Lovely. Thank you very much for those, Karen. 476, financial report update to receive and discuss the cemetery financial report. Alan's here. He's not normally here.
He's here.
Are you here for this one, Alan?
No.
Oh, the next one.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether these were circulated. I don't think they were.
I haven't got one.
Oh, so yeah.
I haven't got one for this week. I've got one for the allotments.
I haven't got one.
Not what good is it? Don't be sure. Haven't had it done. Some more. I swear in Russian. I don't think.
Oh, well, don't worry if you haven't. No, you can have mine because I don't find it.
Well.
Do you need one, Chris? This one?
No, I can read that from here.
You sure?
Okay. Does it look the same close up or far away? Blur.
Okay, so it should be reasonably brief, this one, because we're fairly on track in terms of income. We're just a small sum of money over our forecast our actual for end of month 7. The expenditure, again, I think this is more due to the fact that we've ceased grave digging and it's now outsourced. So that's going to change the aspect of our forecast budget through to the end of the year. So we have a forecast net surplus because of that going through the rest of the year. So hopefully we're all on track. It's just there's a significant underspend in cemetery maintenance. So there is an element there that we can look at expenditure in terms of the memorial garden that we looked at when we did the visit. And Kerry's going to update in her report about the spoils heap. So I'll leave that suggestion till a little bit later in the agenda item if I can. If there's any questions, happy to take them.
You'll probably come up later under the committee officer's report, but I'm just looking at the line for chapel maintenance. When we were with the health and safety chap, I noticed that he was sort of pointing out a couple of bits and pieces that needed doing. Have we sort of got a list of his recommendations following that visit? You know, what it might cost to do some of that maintenance work for the chapel?
I haven't yet. I can look into it though.
Yeah, I'm just, I didn't keep a running tally in my own head, but I know he was pointing out a couple of things to Nick. I mean, we've got plenty of money to do it, I think. But you know, there's a couple of bits that he specifically mentioned from a health and safety point of view.
So I'm not aware, because obviously you also did the venues as well when he was last here. I'm not aware that we've got his official report at the moment, but as Kerry said, we can certainly chase Nick to chase him.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we've got that official report, then we can crack on with those repairs.
Yeah, lovely. I know, as I say, I don't think there was anything major, but there was definitely a couple of bits he said that could be done, and we've got the money to do it. So, which is the main thing. And just so I'm clear, although we're not doing the grave digging anymore, and that's the reason for the variance, our income will be affected to an extent to mirror that, won't it? Because the income for grave digging will go to the funeral directors rather than coming to us. So I'm just wondering, is the variance will be the difference, presumably, because we'll lose the income, but we won't be paying out. And I'm wondering if we've worked out what the variance might be.
I think it was 295 per grave.
Okay, so we can work out from that.
What's the usual fee? What was the usual fee?
Leave, it was 595 and now it's 300.
Okay.
Because presumably the variance there is the total variance rather than the difference. So we might not have as much as we think we have. Is kind of what I'm thinking. Before we go and spend it all.
Right, yeah.
Alan will stop us. Don't worry. Okay.
Although, yes, the chapel maintenance, I take your point, Chair. We'll check that with, but cemetery maintenance is significantly down as well.
Yeah.
So the cemetery maintenance, we've done all the major jobs, so I think we will have a little bit of money there.
Yep. Members have, Dave, you got something?
Just one little nitpicky thing, which I have raised before. It's interments, not internments.
Oh.
Internments is when you lock people up.
Diversify.
Just an, I just said it was a nitpicky thing.
In a way, we are locking people up.
Those things, when you see it, you can't put it out of your mind. You know? Sorry.
Lovely. Chris Dennis, happy? Yep.
Oh, yes. Happy bunny down
Happy
here.
bunny. Good. We like that. So we'll note the report. Yeah.
Yeah.
Noted. Thank you very much for that one. Moving on to the next finance related one, 477, which is the cemeteries budget, which is on the separate sheet. Are you talking to this one, Alan? Is that the plan?
I am. What we've done is we've actually done a very conservative budget. The mix of income varies quite considerably. If you look at there's the history from 2018-19 right through to the original budget, and you'll just see that the income very, the components of the income change from one year to the next, but it stays fairly consistent. So we haven't quite quantified what the possible impact is of the grave digging could be on the income. So we just haven't had the chance to do that yet. So I'll sit down with Kerry and do that exercise. She doesn't know that yet, but I will do that.
You can't wait, Kerry.
When she's sitting down to eat her lunch one day, I'll take her aside. So the income side, it could be a little bit overstated because we've actually got the grave digging component of it. But and then if you look at the expenditure, we've just kept it very similar. Chapel maintenance, we've hardly spent any money historically. Cemetery tools and equipment, the old historical allocations disappeared. The cemetery maintenance, it has been very, very low. I'm not too sure at some stage whether that comes back to bite us because we've got to backfill graves after a certain period of time. Grave diggers no longer do that, and any other maintenance we have to do in terms of headstones, making sure they don't fall on the public. And the groundwater monitoring, we have been told that's gone up. Suppliers have kept that at a fairly consistent rate, so that we've just provided a small increase in terms of that. The grass cutting, I don't know why it actually ends up here, but this is an allocation from the INE contract. So that contract gets managed in terms of amenities. This is just the allocation based on what they spend there. And obviously grave digging falls away because we no longer incur that expenditure. And you can see how, if you look at 2018-19, 2019-20, how inconsistent that is, but yet it had no impact on overall income in those years. And that's why that's quite difficult to work out. If we have more memorial money, it has no impact on the other side, on the grave digging. So it is a very conservative budget, and maybe a little bit of refinement before it goes to finance regarding the impact on income of this grave digging fees.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? No. Presumably the split for the grass cutting is the full new cost from 893 they're proposed
I'm
is.
sure it is, yeah. Now, so some seeds of doubt about that. So please double check.
Well, I'm just thinking we can't afford any slack in a meeting.
No.
We've got to recharge the full amount.
First class back in the office.
It's interesting. It's almost a sort of 2-to-1 difference there between sort of almost 50k in income and 25k in expenditure. But presumably we've got reasonably significant staff costs for administration and there's grass cutting's not the only maintenance that goes on there. So sort of contribution to overheads, I suppose.
Well, these would be direct costs, you know,
Yeah.
chapel maintenance costs, they have to do some fire lights and supply safety and things like that. That will all be sitting on those costs.
Yeah. When we were discussing last month, we had a sort of project ideas discussion around the environment, and we spoke about a desire to put sort of hedgehog houses and some more bird boxes and do some more environmental sort of conservation work at the cemetery. Is there a budget to enable us to do that? Would that come under one of the sort of maintenance ones, or?
I think because it's an ad hoc, you try to, as a project, have a minor project line item and just fund that from either a contribution to reserves.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be recurring. I would think once you put it in place, you wouldn't have that going from one year to the next.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we do want to put some, because we had a good discussion about that last month or September, whenever it was. So I'm just thinking we might want to put some money aside to do that.
Yeah, and we did suggest going to the main shed.
In sheds, yeah. What we say, £1,000 in project budget to do that?
The U3A have a woodworking group as well, so they might be happy to make some boxes.
Yeah. Even if we just bought the wood and then they can
Yeah,
do the work.
it's a partnership with people, isn't it?
Yeah. And the groundwater monitoring, still relatively new to the committee. Who tells us we have to do that and dictates the frequency of how often we do that?
We paid quarterly as well. I can say.
Well, I can't understand. I can't remember the historical aspect of it.
I think we agreed to ask that question
Yeah.
at a meeting recently, and it is a bit of a historical thing, and it happened when the extension was put in, I think. But you
I
probably
think
know a
it's
bit
one
more
of the
about it.
conditions of our licence that we have to have it done.
Yes.
Is that a licence from the Environment Agency?
Yes.
I think one of the reasons that I think I raised it as, do we still need to do it? Because it was because every time it came out, there was no variations. It was more or less the same.
Yeah, that was my thought looking at the report.
Having looked at the report this time, there's a big spike in ammonia, but which may be an anomaly, they were saying, so we won't know till next time. But that's rather unfortunate that there was that big change, because if we asked the question, we now have to fess up that.
Yeah. I was just wondering at what point we go back to EA and say, based on this data over X number of years, can we ask for variation to reduce the frequency, given it's, it's quite a significant cost. Although they did say in the report that it's probably sort of heat wave related, didn't they? And we've had a very dry year, so that may be.
And that's the levels, isn't it?
There's no water there; it's just everything else that's left, basically. Is my interpretation of the
The
report.
levels were quite a lot lower.
Yeah.
But the ammonia spike was only in one of the boreholes.
Okay.
And so they were saying it's quite possibly.
Yeah.
It was all. I did notice it was a borehole quite near the allotments as well. So something's leached through the allotments. I don't know.
So from a budget point of view, we obviously have to budget worst case scenario, so we'll leave it there. But it could be something we agreed to do under the committee officer's report. Just ask the question of the EA because, things have changed since we've agreed to that licence. 4 years ago, 2018, I saw, or longer.
I think it's longer than
I
that.
think it's been longer,
Yeah.
Oh, I think this company was appointed in 2018. I read that in the
at
report.
least that.
Yeah. So we'll leave it in there, but because if we've got to do it, we've got to do
The
it.
council has a really good relationship with the EA, don't we?
Yeah. But are members happy to approve the draft budget? Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. Do you need a proposal or a second, or just a series of nodding heads?
Always better.
Always better. Okay. Oh, I'm happy to propose it.
A second.
There we go.
We haven't voted.
Would you like to exercise your hand, Dennis?
No, I always like to have the vote,
Oh, very.
my thing.
You're gonna run away now. That's another draft budget to feed into your mix, Alan.
Yeah.
Something to go to third.
Yeah. Both have added money to it so far.
Thank you, Alan.
More money in.
Yes, sorry, I did look and it's fine. Yeah, I saw it yesterday. I didn't reply.
See you later.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, moving on, 478, cemetery opening and closing to determine immediate short-term operational arrangements for the cemetery in respect of opening and closing. The first thing I would say is we don't, as a standard agenda item, have on cemetery an item for compliments and complaints. I've certainly had a number of people contact me in relation to the opening and closing of the cemetery, and I think other members have. Do we have, and I've certainly pushed them to make, formal contact with the council. Presumably we have had people contact us and make complaints about the opening and closing.
3 emails and 1 phone call.
Right, okay. I'm just wondering if we could put in, oh, sorry, Dave, I'm running on.
No, it's all right. I just wondered whether a lot of the complaints come via Facebook and whether when we get adverse comments coming up on our Facebook with accounts, whether we record those. Because a lot of people use that as a means of
Yeah. I think, well, David might be able to answer, but I think according to our policy, we don't. It's merely if they contact us officially.
Yes.
We don't record them officially.
No.
We do monitor them, and we are getting better at trying to provide a statement, if you like, to some of those complaints. This one I don't think we did, simply because it was a contractual thing.
Yeah.
We had to, and I know Alan and Nick have made contact with the contractor about this. So this agenda item was put forward by Chair.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, I've got some costs that we can look at through to the end of March 2023, which will see this financial year out, and it also sees the winter season out. So we changed the times again in April. And I've only got the one quote at the moment, but the initial quote is for, and is a contracted obligation to have a 3-hour contract per day. We would have to have it for 3 days because the current contractor closes on a Friday because the team finishes at 3:30. But that wouldn't suffice with the 3-hour contractual obligation. So we were looking at Friday, Saturday and Sunday for the remaining 18 weeks. And the overall cost, including VAT, would be £3,120.12. Now, for the period of time that they're asking, I've spoken to Alan, and what the suggestion is, I know the committee has talked about litter picking, bin emptying and things like that. Well, it's a reasonable amount of time. Certainly in the morning, we could allocate an hour to it, and in the evening, 2 hours. So the contractor could turn up at 2 o'clock, start emptying bins, litter picking and things like that. But also from a customer service point of view, if that's the right term in this circumstances, at least if he sees bodies within, that's the wrong term. People attend, if he sees bodies, we're in trouble. But if he sees people tending graves and things, at least he can have a nicer conversation about reminding them that, they've got lots of time, but we do close at 4 o'clock. And then he can get on with things like possibly checking the memorial garden and things like that. So there are some advantages to doing this, because literally the other contract is literally turning up, opening and closing full stop.
So this 3 hours is just, that's the minimum they would do, is it?
That's the minimum.
Yeah. And the things like litter picking, bin emptying, who does that?
That's on a cycle for the works team.
Okay.
And clearly the works team are getting busier and busier. So, we've made great strides at the cemetery, and we are getting good compliments from Bangor in Bloom and people like that. We want to make sure. So we could also extend the response.
Reduce our costs as a cemetery committee, but it will free up time for the.
Well, I think part of the suggestion is that we try and absorb it into this contract.
Right.
Because it is a little bit silly that, you know, this is very specific to the cemetery and it's almost included in the wider town. And this is where we get the issues. I mean, if you think currently, I think the contractor closes this building as well, or the gates of the garden, there's no way you can be in two places at once at 4 o'clock. So it cuts out just that temptation to close one site earlier than that's advertised. I'm not suggesting it's done on a regular basis, but I'm sure it does. Or one site gets closed later. But I think there is an advantage to the minimum 3 hours. The disadvantage is there's obviously a cost to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've got Dennis next.
Personally, I think that's the solution to our problems at this moment. It not only does it get our gates closed on time and everything, it relieves some of the time from the works crew, and we get some more communication with our customers not the actual customers in the cemetery, but the people in the cemetery. And so I think it's a win-win. And this committee is rich enough to take this hit in its budget, isn't it? So
We can afford it as well.
So, but just to bring it back to reality of the agenda item, this is only the short-term solution to the end of the financial year. We'd have to start looking closely at what we do next year.
Yes.
Yeah, but in the meantime, interim, as an interim idea, I think it's a brilliant one. Well, come up with.
Just finish. This, I mean, I know it's only short term, but if it were to work and then continue on, would a position like this be ring fenced? Because in the past, what we've had is we've had members of staff leave, and then they've not necessarily been replaced for the same job. So you don't, I mean, like the countryside, wildlife and countryside officer, that I think that work has now been absorbed into the town team, or into the works team. I don't know because I've never really been briefed on it, but I have noticed that we haven't actually got one anymore. So I just wondered whether if we did set this up and somebody left, would they be replaced, or would there be, we've got enough people in the team to cover that, and then we come back to a similar situation we've got now?
I think at the moment we're purely, it's a very short-term solution, literally for 18 weeks. And anything past that, we would have to have a separate discussion about and decide for the sort of medium to long term.
Yeah, I think what also you're alluding to is the fact that the previous designated cemetery officer, if you like, has now been promoted to town team manager, and we just didn't recruit. That post in isolation. I think this proposal also just gives us a little bit of opportunity to bring back some of those responsibilities. Clearly, just to open and shut a gate doesn't take 3 hours.
No.
There's a lot of flexibility in this.
It's breathing space until we work out what we're going to do next, frankly.
Sure, I suppose we take that.
Thank you. I've got Chris.
Is this company local?
They are. They're one of just going back to the previous cemetery officer. One of the biggest advantages of that was that there was ongoing conversations with people. So we had a better rapport with people attending the graves. And again, if this person turns up at 2 o'clock and has 2 hours, they're going to have more regular contact with people. So we can use them to communicate our messages out a lot more clearer.
So just 3 days a week.
It's only for Friday, Saturday and Sunday, but the weekend is probably one of the most important times.
The hourly rate, just sat and worked it out, is a bit more than I would like, but it is a temporary solution. It's the only one on the table, and I think we need to take it. When I was with the health and safety chat recently, I mean, all of the bird feeders, and there's a lot of them at the cemetery, they were all empty. Great opportunity for this person to keep an eye on them. I know Nick and the team stretched, so they've done some winter planting on the market square, but I don't know if we've managed to put any winter planting in at the cemetery. So it might be they can just tend to the tubs that we've got there and help with the display and improve our offer, because we want to make sure the cemetery is nice. So it just gives us a bit more capacity until the end of March. And I'm happy with 3 hours. I mean, it doesn't take that long to open and close a gate, but there are other things they could be doing, frankly. So, so we're looking at 18 weeks, 3,120. When would be that 18-week be starting from?
So I've just looked at it from the 1st of December, but I'm sure we've got a little bit of wiggle room. I think they can pretty much get someone to go, but it's only a couple of weeks away.
Presumably the committee's wish would be for as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll go back to them today.
tomorrow will be fine.
The other important thing is for a weekend person is you tend to get people from outside
Yes.
of the town. And this is where the issues are.
Yeah, that's where my complaints were from people having to drive in.
Okay, any other points to make before we, Dennis's proposed, we'll put it to a vote, but just make sure you're happy with that.
Yeah, if any of the committee wants to feedback in, as Terry has just done about bird feeders and things, if you've got other little areas that we can look at, and then we'll come to a job responsibility proposal. I'll share that with the committee, and then I'll get back to the contractor.
You might want to check with Nick, because I'm sure there's things that historically he just does automatically that he probably don't have time for. So Dennis has proposed that. It's Chris is seconding. Yeah, we'll beat you to it, Dave. All in favour, please. Thank you very much. Brilliant. That's dealt with that. And then, as David mentioned, the longer term arrangements, whether we continue to do our own thing as a cemetery committee, or if we go in with another arrangement, will be a discussion for another day. I suspect the determining factor will be whatever amenities, and then council decide about the toilets and, you know, the bigger aspects of the contract, and then we can decide if we want to bolt onto that or to do our own thing, basically. We'll have to do it each in turn, I think, so take that forward. Okay, moving on, 479 committee officers report. I think this is mainly you, Kerry. Thank you for your report that you circulated. It was useful. Do you want to talk us through it? Some useful bits on there?
Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is obviously about interments, because we're getting very close to the limit on the extension. The figures that I put in here last week are still the same at the moment, so we've had nothing else booked in since then. But obviously we are at 20 and it is 25 for the year. I have contacted the local undertakers, so they're aware as well.
Our busy season's coming in, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Do we have a sort of adopted approach for what we do if we reach that limit? Because presumably, you know, there'll be a very emotional time for families, and we want to be clear on what we're saying to them in advance, just to prepare ourselves if that were to happen. I mean, it hasn't happened before.
It did happen.
Okay.
Yeah, we did have to stop it for a couple of weeks. So,
Okay.
but last year it didn't affect anyone, so that was the good thing, that at least it was.
I'm always a believer in sort of forward planning, and if we can be as ready as we can be if the worst were to happen, just so we're clear on what we would say to people and how we would communicate that.
Yeah, I sent some information around last week, obviously about why we have to do it and that sort of thing.
Yep.
I can send some more information around if anyone would like.
Yeah.
I found it very important.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really useful, especially for me, because I wasn't here obviously when that was happened before. But when I saw that it was getting close, I thought, well, imagine being the family that you are affected. Exactly, it would be awful. And you know, we need to be clear as a council that we handle that as sensitively as we can, I suppose, is what I'm saying. But yeah, that sounds like we're on the ball with it.
As proactive as we can do.
Yeah, and I think we are, and I like the fact that we've sort of forewarned people and stuff. So, but
You know, we want to give people as much warning as possible, so that's why we've obviously contacted the local undertakers, so they're aware of the situation. And
presumably, if that was a risk, they might encourage people to either be buried elsewhere or move to a sort of cremation option.
yes, they would, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so moving on, cemetery notice boards. So hopefully you've got all the pictures that I've sent. So those are the two that we've currently got at the back gate and the entrance. And then it was just some suggestions that I've put forward. I don't know if anyone else has got any suggestions that they'd like to make to go on the notice board. The cost is 120 plus VAT per notice board.
The only thought I had, Kerry, is I saw obviously on the proposal, I think it's on both of them, for the town council landline number.
Yeah.
What happens if there's an emergency in the cemetery at the weekend? Who should people contact? Because presumably the landline wouldn't be picked up at the weekend.
No.
And I mean, I don't know if there is an arrangement, so we might not be able to put it on the board.
Like I say, I'm not aware that there's an arrangement.
And that's really the fundamental point of the complaints. There is no one to contact. There's no one on call, you know. Yeah, so what we'd have to factor into this short-term opening and closing is to have someone who's willing to take the phone call, you know. But yeah.
I just thought it'd be a useful addition because you don't want the public ringing the landline on a Saturday or Sunday because there's nobody there.
That was my major concern. There was no contact number on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full time.
And the only other point I was going to make is at Charles Borough we have quite a lot of notice boards and tenants come and go, and we quickly learned after a while that it's expensive replacing notice boards. Every time, you know, in our case we moved office, the old office is on there. If phone numbers change or that sort of thing, and I thought with our notice board, if the timings were to change, you'd have to replace the whole notice board.
Yeah.
And I just wondered to future-proof it, if we can get it designed in a way that if those times were to change, that little bit could change rather than the whole board.
Okay.
So we design it so that the numbers of the rooms stay the same because they're consistent. But if a tenant goes, we can change that name on its own, if that makes sense. So just to keep the cost down. And I just thought, well, I don't know if we are going to change the cemetery times. That was the only thing I thought that was flexible. Assuming the phone number won't change. Whether the company can give us an option that we don't have to change the whole thing if we do change the times.
Okay.
Just one comment. Sorry, Don. I mean, Thetford Town Council is Carnegie Room already, not the King's House.
The one that's up at the moment says King's House. The new one.
Which,
Okay. And will the possibly job of the people who are doing unlocking possibly clean the site?
Yeah, I mean, that's something when we do the email circulation, if you can just add that to it, so you don't forget any of it.
No problem.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a deal breaker, the point I was just making, but if we ask the company if that's a possibility,
What they say.
because we don't want to, 6 months' time, 9 months' time, we change the cost, change the times, then you've got to do the whole thing again, haven't you?
Yes.
Just paint over and white.
It's sort of, well, some people do, and then it looks a bit
It looks
tacky,
scratchy,
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
you should probably combine the times.
Yeah, as long as you've got the font and stuff.
The people who are making the final bit will tell you.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the big map in reception, Dave, and the cost of changing all the tenant names every 5 minutes when someone comes and goes. Soon learn not to do that. So happy to give Kerry the go-ahead, sort of those comments on board, and that new design looked nice.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a particular one that you preferred, or?
I thought one had a lot more text on than the other.
Yeah, that's the one that's like "Welcome to the Cemetery."
Yeah. I haven't got those in front of me actually, but was the cost the same for
It's the
both?
same for both. Yeah.
Don't charge us per letter.
No.
Welcome to the cemetery was nice.
Yeah.
But is the writing very small or is it reasonable size?
It's a reasonable size.
Good.
It's going to be the same.
You have
It's going to be what we've currently
That's
got.
great,
So
yeah. Chair, which is your preference?
I neither here nor there.
I like the one with more explanation on it.
Yeah.
Sorry, how much did you say these signs are?
it's 120 plus that.
Both of them,
That's not too bad.
one.
Because I mean, see, you've got one at the entrance and one at the back.
Yeah.
What about one where pedestrians use normally when they come across with the big gates on, walking through that way?
Where the extension is.
What, the entrance where the lay-by is. A lot of people come in that way.
Even pedestrians walking that way. I mean, you see loads of people. It might not be, but you know, taking a load in there. Just, I mean, at that price, why not have one? All three entrances already.
So is that price per sign or?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. That's very
You
good.
don't have to do that. What just
It's not massive. Is that, that presumably is just the sign, not the post? Is it?
It's just the sign.
Yeah.
You're going to use the post that we've already
Right,
got.
because putting another one in,
We need some more posts.
which isn't there already, and that would probably be a little bit more expensive, but
but
might be something.
more information about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd probably go with the one with more writing, because it is quite interesting, isn't it?
yeah,
I'd probably change the order around slightly, where it says London Road Cemetery was opened in 1855. I'd probably move that towards the bottom, because what people are really interested in is the opening times.
Yep.
Just to be clear. And then you've got your sort of points of information there, beware there is a pond, blah, blah, blah. And then I would have the sort of historical information at the bottom as a sort of added bonus, just sort of let people know what's going on.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Although our history is very important.
Are you sort of content with the wordier one?
Yes, I like
Yeah, it's all useful, and
the more communication we have with our public, the better.
okay, so we're going to go with the wordier one. We're going to move the writing around a little bit, and we're happy for a third one at an additional cost to be put into the extension.
Right.
We get a discount, we get free, Karen. Bulk buy them.
Yeah, we have buy two, get one free.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. That's
Yeah.
And I'll update these and I'll send them round just so that.
that'd be lovely. Yeah,
Done.
presumably somebody proofread them. I haven't spotted anything, but
David.
I don't normally. So,
I haven't noticed anything. When you send it, I'll have another look.
Yeah, he'll proofread it.
before we go ahead, we'll look into the emergency contact number option. I mean, it may be that we can't put it on there because we don't have an arrangement, but it you know, is something that practically would be useful if we did. So
Oh, we used your number, didn't we, Karen? Sure.
never answer it. So. Thank you. That's notice boards. Pagoda.
Yeah, bad news about the pagoda. Since I've done the report, I've spoken to Men's Sheds, and unfortunately, it's not something that they're going to be able to do. But obviously, with you mentioning
Yeah.
3A, would it
Yeah.
be something they might be
Well, it's
interested
possible,
in?
yeah. It's gonna be quite a large thing, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, they might just really love a project like that.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, we pay for the materials, no doubt.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something that can be put to them. Their contact details, I'm not sure who it is at the moment, but their contact details will be on the U3A website, Thetford U3A.
Yeah.
okay,
And if you have any trouble, get back to me because I'm
Yeah.
all connected in the U3A.
okay.
I think they're quite limited for space, Men's Shed, aren't they, in their little unit up at
Yeah, that's.
Enterprise Factory? So I imagine it would be quite big, really.
Yeah,
Good organisation.
Okay, so that's work in progress. Hopefully U3A might come through. If not, we can revisit that and decide what we want to do.
okay. So pond, obviously, we all met with the health and safety advisor last month. I'm contacting Gavin, but he's actually away at the moment to see if the fencing is something that he would be able to do. And obviously, we're getting signage and things done as well.
Is that the same company as the big boards that's doing the
Yes.
signage?
Yeah.
Good. That'd be nice to have that open ready for the spring and sort of lots of life there, I'm sure.
Oils compound. I've actually received a quote from a company this morning, and it's 3,990 plus VAT.
Remind me what we're doing with the spoils compound.
That's the one that the undertakers have asked for because we've got one at the moment, which
The front.
yeah. So now they want
The other, yeah.
All right.
So the compound is going to be made of what materials?
well, they're going to do fencing. I haven't actually brought the
Fencing.
quote with me, but I'll say it only came in this morning.
I think our original, the one we've got now was done by our works team, wasn't it? And well, that's when Roger was down.
Yeah.
And I think the screening is hedging that's still growing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Mm.
I'm sure this is for the convenience of the
grave digger.
diggers, yeah. And so it's a lot of money for us to pay for their convenience.
It's a lot of money, but I think both of the main funeral directors that we deal with, the contractor that they've gone to has said that, you know, they're not interested in the contract unless we can, provide. So it's a bit of a catch-22 really, but we just have to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I've got
a
some
cheaper
first
option.
quoting, so
We'll have to try and look at materials and have a chat with Nick to see whether we can.
I did have a word with Nick, but obviously, he said that obviously the team are very busy, so that he didn't think that they have the time to do it, but obviously that's an expensive quote, so.
Yeah. Dennis, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a considerable amount of soil, isn't it, after a while? I mean, what do we do with it in the long term?
It
We
does
can't
go,
just pile it up till,
so obviously over time graves will sink.
yeah, so we use some of that back, yeah. But we'll only be using what, maybe 20% of it back? And that means there's an awful lot of, going to be a lot of extra left.
Is the majority of it temporary while the grave is open?
Yes.
And then it's.
Yeah, so most of
backfilled,
it will
so-
then be
so it's
backfilled, so it's only going to be, yeah,
And then there's sinkage, so some of it,
yeah.
yeah, will be, oh, so it might be not too bad.
But there probably is a build-up over time, is it? 'Cause
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Nick would know, really,
Yeah.
I suppose, wouldn't he?
When's our next scheduled cemetery meeting? February?
January, is it?
January. I'm just thinking that if we do a bit more, because we've only got the one quote at the moment, so it would make sense to try and get at least, one or two more
Yeah.
quotes. Gives you a bit more time to twist Nick's arm.
Yeah,
But from a practical point of view, by then we'll know a bit more about our spend for the year. Because, at the moment, we actually can't afford it.
yeah,
If we move towards the more financial year end, we might have an underspend and we might choose to use it to do that. But I don't think we're probably able to make a decision on that one today. But we've got a bit more work to do.
yeah.
Have we decided the location, or it's right up in the top corner?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's sort of out of the way a bit, and it doesn't impinge on where we might want to put graves, probably. Or does it?
It's out of the way, but it's near.
In the cemetery extension, it's the bit that's opposite Muslim graves.
mhm.
So,
There's hedging, and that up there.
and that's, and for that reason, Dave, is why we,
So it's not right at the top then, it's not about halfway down. That's where
I don't think there's anywhere at the top it could go.
No,
but
okay.
because it was opposite
Yeah.
that section, I think we do need to try and screen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, we just need to look at the cost.
Yeah, okay, and I'll have a chat with Nick as well about it.
Yeah, so I think we've moved it forward, but a bit more work to do, and we can always revisit it. They've lasted this long with the current arrangements. They'll have to, you can update them that we're getting quotes and we've discussed it just out of courtesy. Recognise that we are working on it, but
Yeah,
budgets are budgets. Can't get told off if we overspend.
I have got one more thing that I want to mention that wasn't on the report. A local undertaker's contacted us about having the memorial Christmas tree again and the wooden hearts. Obviously they would fund it, and the tags and everything, and they'd like to install it the second week of December, if everyone's happy with that.
Yeah, I think so.
I volunteer to be the person who sits in the chapel sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
I've done it previous years.
Yeah, I've been there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite nice, yeah.
Dennis could do overnight.
Right. Yeah, I'll bring a sleeping bag.
Yeah, it's always been very popular. It's a lovely thing to do, and it's very generous of the funeral company to do that. So, and presumably we would coordinate some publicity to promote the fact that it's there, and
I think last year Nick took pictures of it and I think they did a video as well.
Even better. Yeah, I think that's, yep. Oh, brilliant. Just following on from that last one there, Kerry, I did speak to one of the funeral companies recently, the one that wrote that letter. And they suggested it would be very nice for a sort of informal meeting between the different funeral companies and the committee. Because I don't know who they are, frankly. And given that Christmas is approaching, I just wondered if we did something in here, just a cup of tea and a chat, just to put a face to a name. There's not many of them, and we want to work on our relationship with these different companies, don't we? So, yeah.
Can we have a biscuit as well?
A biscuit.
I would say I'm inspired.
Sorry, I'm thinking
Do we have
in
enough
here, but somewhere else
So
might be
again,
better.
sorry, we don't want to mention names, but that particular one does the Christmas tree year on year. I know the other one, actually, they may well be interested in, they've got donkeys and things like that they do, so there might be a sort of a nativity type thing, you know, if we can have people to come and make it a bit more of an event. Because we do get a lot of good feedback from them.
Yeah.
Do we have the ability to put tea and coffee and biscuits on at the chapel?
We can do, we can.
That would be a very good idea.
We can all service it from the work. So,
I mean, I don't know how many companies we work with. There's two I know of.
Yes, yeah.
There may be
The
more.
two main ones.
They're two main ones. I mean, we could invite others potentially, but it's just as a cemetery committee, there's only four of us. You know, that particular one rang me up and spoke to me about an issue in the cemetery, and you know, I had a chat about it. It'd be good to just build relationships with them. So,
Absolutely.
so we look for a day, and
Good idea, Chair.
Very generous.
I have them occasionally. But yeah, we could do it at the
Can we
chapel.
have one for the next week?
We some spare tea bags and some
yeah,
mince
hot
pies.
chocolate and things, yeah.
We don't need many. There's only four of us and two funeral companies, and then three or four staff.
That's it, yeah. Bring the donkeys along so we can inspect them.
Yeah. Have a whole nativity scene on the go. Anything further from your report, Kerry?
I haven't.
No, thank you all for that. That's all really positive stuff, I think. Yeah, even the pagoda was positive because we might get one from another means.
And it's nice, as you said, it's nice working in partnership.
Yeah, I think so. I'll put my agenda. Oh, there. Okay, 480 memorial bench application to make a decision on a received memorial bench application. Is this the first one since our new policy was adopted?
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you very much. It was circulated in advance and it's all fairly self-explanatory. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, just that obviously the area that they'd like is available, so there's no problem with it.
Yeah, and they were quite specific on
Yes.
where to go. I mean, ordinarily I'd obviously encourage benches elsewhere, but they were quite specific on this location and I can understand why. So, are we happy just to approve?
I have a question, if I could. I'm curious, why is the name of applicant and that redacted, but the names and descriptions are going to go on there and deceased and et cetera, not?
So the only reason I mean, Kerry did ask me that. The only reason I said is because if we were to discuss it openly and then decide not to do it, then we've advertised.
So it's okay, I just
Yeah.
curious to see.
I mean, it's not likely we are going to refuse it unless it's in an area where so that's the only reason. I mean, we certainly, we can certainly publicise it now.
Just
And that price there, was that the final price we arrived at in the policy? 956.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kept.
Changed several times and I couldn't remember if that was the one we agreed to.
Yeah, we kept just under 1,000, I remember doing it, yeah.
Would you like to exercise your hand again, Dennis?
Oh, yeah, well,
All in favour?
yeah, that's it, yeah.
Thank you very much. That's approved. 481, community engagement to discuss and agree any consultation or media release required. We've obviously got the tree to talk about. Anything else we want to talk about?
The opening and closing.
Well, sensitive subject that, but I'm wondering if we want to, once the new arrangement starts, if we do want to promote that.
Yeah,
How quick do we think we can get the signage done?
I don't know, fairly quickly, I'm
Because
guessing.
if we had a new sign, I think, you know, if we had the committee, we could do a double whammy, really. We could advertise a new sign and then people can actually visually see where these signs are, because some people don't, they just walk past it. And then you can also get a good bit of positivity about, you know, you've taken on board the feedback of blah, 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 we've changed our contractor, we've improved it, blah, blah, blah. And that, so we really get a bit of positivity, but also it's an information of where the notice boards are. So as a committee, we can just do a photograph and we need to do that quite quickly because we're going to do the opening and closing fairly soon.
I'm just wondering in the wording if we can make sure that we have an apology for past performance and just it needs to be the first thing we say, but just apologise to say we realise that we've fallen below the standard and we're now looking at new arrangements or something like that.
So we will come up with a bit of a comment from Chair in terms of the fact that we've, you know, taken that on board and improved it, but I'll circulate that and you can have your input.
Yeah, we can circulate that to the committee.
That's a really positive thing to do.
Yeah, that is positive. Brilliant. Okay. Engagement. Committee officers update. I mean, the community engagement really is the engagement as well with the funeral directors. So, you know, they are part of our cemetery community as such. So I'll include that within that really. Committee officers update. Anything from the committee officer since the issue of the agenda? Anything further? Kerry, you happy?
Got anything?
David? No. And the only thing I would ask Karen is on future agendas, because I'm bound to forget. I've made a note on here and then I'll forget. Can we add a standard agenda item for compliments and complaints? Because I think if Kerry's receiving them and dealing with them, just a brief note each time we meet of, you know, what the complaint was about and how it was dealt with, just so that we've got a running total. Because, you know, we have to make decisions as a committee on opening times or whatever. And it's just useful to know if people are complaining about the opening times or they're complaining about the closing, just so that we can make informed decisions. So.
or occasionally complimenting us.
Or compliments too, because we want to make sure that compliments are properly noted. So if we have a standard agenda item, it doesn't have to be a detailed report, just we've had free compliments this month, all about these wonderful new signs or whatever. Okay. Anything further? No, so you're happy. Good. Thank you all very much for coming. Meeting closed.
Do we got time?